Good morning. We're reading The Greatest Captain in the World 2 by Johann Steinke and Joel Rudd. Illustrations by Andy Catlin. This book is got a female captain this time. And when the two books, Volume 1 and Volume 2, are put together, the captains are looking at each other. On a ship far away. From any quiet, calm bay was a family headed for a new home. They were huddled close together, and I worried for the weather as the planks began to shake and groan. "No need to worry," said the boatswain in no hurry. "She's strong and tight like a drum. Our captain's been through worse, without uttering a curse. She's the finest captain as they come. So don't mind the gale, sit and listen to my tale. It's as true as any could be. Just get some rest, for our captain's the best. She's the greatest in the world, you'll see." How the wind was howling that dreadful night, every anchor out, the ropes bar tight. A looming lee shore meant our demise, when our captain pulled her earring, which twinkled before our eyes. She laid it on the deck, making sure it wouldn't roll, but we couldn't lift it up with a single sailor's pull. So we all teamed up, but still it held fast. Then we rigged all the tackles, and the earring moved at last. We lowered it to the bottom, those ropes took a strain, and the ship stopped dragging in the cold, pelting rain. "Pretty good story," said a sailor with a sneeze, "but here's the one that'll make your blood freeze. Just our captain took horribly ill. The only cure was some rest and a pill. Then came an iceberg 3 miles high, coming ever closer as it filled the sky. We raced to the sails and lowered the boats. We sea-stowed the deck and tied up the goats. Our captain came out and saw the sight. Her heart warmed with pride and how we dealt with our plight. Her heart's glow got so hot, the tar began to drip. She melted that iceberg and saved the ship." The sailmaker looked up from his needle and palm. "Now listen to my tale and try to stay calm. Saw it from aloft, no time to turn away. We rammed into a reef and we're clearly here to stay. We tried our very hardest to lighten the boat, but still it was sure she wasn't gonna float. Our captain gathered sails and had us sew them all together. Then she hung them overhead as if to hide us from the weather. We did as she bid, though it seemed like a joke. Then she went to the stove and gave the coals a poke. The galley smoke rose, filled those sails like a balloon, and the ship took to the skies, flying higher than the moon. A sailor from above shook off her coat below. The next part of the story has a really nice flow. We were flying around as people tend to do when a mountain spewing lava burst from the ocean blue. Molten rocks flew past and tore through the sails. Our ship fell to the water, splashing up to her rails. The rocks would sink us, at least the end would not be dull, when the captain told the gunner to blast through the hull. She ran to the pumps, flashing us a grin, then quickly started pumping as the water rushed in. She streamed up that water high overhead and sprayed down the volcano till its fires were dead. Then the cook came by, fresh from the manger. My story's the best if I had to make a wager. There can only be one greatest, so it should come as no surprise. When another crew dared race us, we knew we'd get the first prize. But instead of setting sail, the captain started a song, and so did our skipper, so we all sang along. They stared at each other, wondering who'd sail first, when all of a sudden, both squeeze boxes burst. The ship shot ahead, screaming past the starting line, racing through the night, making world record time. Once around the globe and back to the starting place, they agreed to a tie, so neither crew lost face. Last was an old salt sucking on a lime. Here is a yarn that will make you feel fine. We wished to trade in a faraway port, guarded by the cannons of an old stone fort. We begged and we pleaded, let us in for a while, when our captain posed a challenge with a confident smile. She'd arm wrestle the guards, every last one, and they spat on their hands, thinking, this'll be fun. They lined up in a row, our captain rolled up her sleeve. She didn't break a sweat as the guards began to heave. Then she slammed down her arm and sideways slid our ship. We came alongside perfect to the offloading slip. There were no more yarns to spin, and the children had grins when a voice yelled, we've made it through somehow. The storm's gone past, we're free of it at last, and the captain says there's dolphins on the bow. It was a bright sunny day. The boat had stopped its sway. The children saw the dolphins in a row, and the seals and the sharks and the whale. Fish were flying with their tails. And all tied up by the captain for a tow. And that's the end of this story. Then we've got some terminology for what are the sailors doing. Scrimshaw. Sailors used to carve designs into whale bones and teeth and sometimes also walrus tusks. You can still see many of these works of art in museums today. The bosun in the book is holding a sperm whale's tooth. Capstan. The sailors are spinning the capstan around using bars attached to it. Whatever is tied or wrapped around the capstan will come under very heavy strain if you do this. This was needed to haul up anchors, load heavy cargo, or even lift up and remove parts of the rigging masts. Reefing. This is what those sailors are doing aloft. See the glossary for the meaning of aloft. They are partially taking in sail and tying off only a part of it. This lets them still use the sail, but not much of it. In heavy winds, a fully set sail could get damaged, be destroyed, or damage the masts and yards. What the sails are attached to. Shanties, sailor songs. People in the past love singing together. It's fun. Bonds a group or a family and very important on ships. Helps people stick to a beat. For sailors, singing a shanty meant being able to have a little fun while pulling and still be able to pull together at the same time. Animals on the ship. A lot of people think that the only thing sailors ate were ship's biscuits. On land, it was called hardtack. It's kind of like a thick cracker and salt pork. In actuality, ships were trying to get fresh food from land whenever possible. And when they were going on a long voyage, they could bring animals with them. Chickens and goats were popular, though sometimes even sheep and cows would come too. That meant lots of fresh eggs, milk, and meat for the crew, which was very important for a sailor's health. Knife and marlin spike. A knife and spike were very important tools for sailors. The marlin spike is great for untying knots and splicing, weaving ropes together, and the knife is very useful for cutting rope. Notice how there is no pointy end on the knife. That was to help prevent sailors from accidentally injuring themselves or others on a constantly moving deck. Anchoring. Anchoring is really neat. When you drop anchor and it digs into the bottom, your ship will hopefully stay in its new home. wherever in the world they may be, wherever in the world that may be. Many times in the age of sail, large ships and merchant ships would anchor out in a sheltered bay rather than sail onto dock. And then there was the sailmaker. Sailmakers were often on long voyages so that sails could be repaired and even created when sailing to far off places. And then our glossary is the terminology. Gale, lee shore, tackles, iceberg, sea stow, tar, aloft, reef, pumps, manger, losing face, yarn, slip, tow. These are our authors and our illustrator. And then you too can be a sailor. You can go to this website or you can follow him on Facebook. The end.